First off, my name is Ethan Kelley. I've been writing for the Spurs Up Show for a few months now, and I'm also a student at USC. What I wanted to talk to today about is the school's response to the coronavirus and how we've returned back to campus. Obviously, right now our numbers are not very good. We are around 600 total active cases, I think, and I think all of us know someone who is positive. So right now there's a lot of questions going on. There's a report earlier this week that the school is considering shutdown options, and then another report that no, they want to maintain where we are right now. But no one really knows. I think in the next week or two, more answers will come out as more numbers come out. So a lot of us have a lot of questions for the school and what's going on. I think one of the biggest questions I have, at least, is what did the school expect when they decided we were coming back to campus? What was their ideal situation? What was their worst case scenario? And what was the most likely situation? Because if they decided to come back and did not expect any type of outbreak, I'm not sure how they came to that situation. But like in the past 2 or 3 weeks, other schools like North Carolina, Notre Dame, they already had some pretty big outbreaks and responded to those. And I'm also wondering what did the school do differently? They emailed us, I think, and they said, let's not become like Notre Dame, let's not become like North Carolina. And they said the kind of basic talking points like wear a mask, social distance, all that sort of stuff. But did they put anything in place that would make us not become North Carolina? And I don't know about that. It seems like they had three main points for the strategy when it came to this. One, buy a ton of hand sanitizer and masks and a lot of those supplies. Create like a hashtag or something like I Pledge Columbia or whatever that is. And also don't look bad in the press. Like have good PR or in the public's eyes. And from the school's perspective, I think they accomplished that over the past week. There was a story that came out where it was 4 or 5 sororities or fraternity houses were under quarantine, and then 2 or 3 days later, or 2 days later, the school came out and said, we might consider shutdown options, or it didn't look that good. So the narrative that's being pushed forth by these news sites is the school is about to be shut down and it's Greek left's fault. I personally think that's does not fully acknowledge certain mistakes that were made by the school and the campus as a whole, like the school's testing strategy. If you saw any of those pictures of 650 or like the testing sites on campus, I'm not sure whose idea that was. I don't know why someone would think you have to cram all those students in one place together, even if they're wearing masks and that sort of stuff. But my biggest fear, and what probably did happen, was there was someone there who was positive with coronavirus. If that person infects someone in that line, they're not going to test positive 5 minutes later. And then 2 or 3 days later, when symptoms start to set in or whatever, I don't know, they might infect a few other kids, but they're walking around thinking they're negative. So I don't know why they thought cramming all those students in one spot together was the best way to go about that. And luckily, the only people that posted about it was like Barstool Gamecocks or Snapchat stories. If I don't think I saw any like big news sites talking about it, but and also when it came to like that protest a few days ago, I don't want to get into the whole like this or that because it's very polarizing for a lot of people. But during that whole thing, you had South Carolina students ripping off their masks to yell at the guy. Whether or not that was right or wrong, I'm not getting into that. But the school failed to enforce those, like, or acknowledge not following rules. I think Castleton might have said, make sure if you do protest or you do go to Green Street, wear your mask and socially distance, but the voice wasn't that loud. I think they could have done a little bit better job enforcing those rules or having someone there to say, make sure you're wearing your mask, because they were not doing that at that point. But also, they had 6 months to prepare for this. And I think there were a lot better options they could have gone about this. Like when it comes to testing, if you're living like off-campus apartment, they could have done in the morning at 8 a.m., every room gets saliva test delivered to them, similar to like the mail room or like getting mail delivered to you. At 8 a.m. you get your saliva tube, and by 12 a.m. you have to pass it to the lobby. And by the next day you find out if you are positive or not and go about that. That way you isolate the buildings, and instead of having every single kid on campus or off campus go to one area, you can kind of keep them separate between buildings or living spaces, or have testing done by dorms and not just one or two locations. Or like if you're living on campus, the second you move in, the school hands you a month's supply of immune boosting vitamins or stuff. Like you get a month's supply of vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. Things we know, if you are sufficient in those vitamins or nutrients, whatever, you're less likely to have a severe case of coronavirus. And if the school's end goal is to keep us all safe, that seems like a pretty good thing, a good thing to do. But again, they had 6 months to think about this. I'm brainstorming off like 30 minutes thinking about it. So I think they could have had some better options. I also think their communication from administration to the student level could have been improved. Just an example with the Spurs Up show. In the spring, when they announced we were coming back, I got in contact with the president's office, and I said, we have a platform that has a lot of following from students and people who are invested in the community. I think it'd be a great opportunity to spread the word. And they were hesitant at first, and they said, the topics that you would be talking about with us would be very similar to the town hall events. And that makes sense. So we ran a poll on our site, or our Twitter feed and our Instagram feed, where we said, to the USC students, who here has watched the town halls? And on Twitter, I want to say we got about 170 responses, and it was about 85% had watched none. And I want to say 2 or 3 had watched all of them, and the rest of them watched a few. And then Instagram, which gets a lot more interactions than our Twitter feed does, it was about the same. It was about 86, 87% had watched none of the town halls. And so I emailed them back and said, if the end goal is to communicate with the student body on the largest level possible, I think it'd be a great opportunity, because right, wrong, or otherwise, a lot of students are not watching these. And they got back to me and said, sorry, we are unable to do this because of the president's schedule, which I totally understand. He's very busy man, and it's not a good timing to be the president of a school during a pandemic. But in the last week or two, I wanted to get in contact with someone within the school or upper levels for communication. So I looked up, or I saw who was the representative that was communicating with the press, the guy who was revealing the numbers and the next course of action. So I got in touch with the director of communications at the school, or I emailed him, and I said a very similar thing. I said, I think it'd be a great opportunity to spread the word, and there are a lot of questions that a lot of us still have. Would you be interested in an interview or some type of communication? I sent that email in about a week ago. I still haven't gotten a response. So I'll repeat that again, because it's kind of funny or ironic, where the director of communications and public affairs at our school did not answer my email. So I think the school can improve on that area. But I mean, there's no people. The school right now, they're doing whatever they can. There's no playbook, or there's no manual how to handle a pandemic at a 25,000 person school. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for there. And there was that email, or there was an Instagram post that came out from like Old Row or someone a few days ago, where they said if the schools around the country, if they bring everyone back for a week or two and then send them back home while still sending them the same tuition bill, it's kind of a scam. I think it's like a bait and switch or something. So if that does happen, I'm not sure if it's gonna, where in a week or two they tell a freshman, okay, you're leaving in a week, go. I think there needs to be a lot of transparency between the president and the administration and the student body. I think if they do this, they need to send out an email or some sort of communication telling them where their tuition is going, what it's actually paying for, and why they're unable to drop the prices. Because they're obviously, if they are sending us all home, they are offering a lesser service than being here. So if they are going to do that, they need to defend themselves or explain why they're doing that. But I think the next week or two is going to explain a lot of, was going to reveal a lot of our numbers and that sort of stuff. So I have no idea what's going to happen. But I guess we'll see.